Hello again, and this time I'm doing the exercise 2. So in my last video I told you I would go through 1B and 2, and I figured it would be a too long video, so I split it into two parts. So we are looking at this exercise this time around, and it looks like this. I have it here. So the idea is that I have multiple clients, and they are simultaneously and continuously calling the server. And this exercise is to set up what you will be doing in the semester project. So in the first one, we had that the server could provide some kind of service. We set that up. And in the second one, we also want the client to be able to listen asynchronously. So if a client sends a request to the server, then the client is not stuck until the server returns the request or the response. So the setup will be like this here. I have a client, and on the client side there's a thread, and the responsibility for this thread is to listen for input from the server, whatever the server sends, and then figure out what to do with that input. And on the server side, we have the responsibility that the server class will accept client connections, and each connection will be handled in a separate thread here, just like we have seen in the previous exercises. So the difference is that I have threads on both the client and the server, so that they can both listen asynchronously in a separate thread. And so that means the client can handle, the server here can handle multiple clients, and the client can send a request to the server and then do something else while the server is working, and when the client gets a response back, then it can react to it. So that's the idea. I expect you will have maybe something similar in your semester project. So this is the flow. First we connect to the server. The server will create a thread, as well will the client. The thread will send an ID. So the first thing we read from the server is an ID, so that a client gets an ID. Then the client will send a message to the server. The server will create a response, and then the client will print it out. So what is it the server should send back? The client, blah blah blah, in the run method. Whenever a string is read by the server, hand the string over to the client class, which will print it out. So nothing about what the server, okay, hello to you, right? So the client will just say hello from client, and the server will say hello to you back. Great. Let us open this one. And I have my package ready here. So I am going to need 4 classes. I'm going to need my hello server. I will need my IntelliJ to react. There we go. I need a hello client. And I need my 2 threads. So we call it client socket handler to indicate this is on the client side, and I misspelled that. Shift F6 to rename with a capital H here, client socket handler. And then I need my server socket handler. Okay, so we start with the server. Where's my server? Hello server. I will create my main method, and I will create a new hello server. So just like in the previous exercise, I am only using the main method to create an instance of the server, and then I want to launch the server here. So let's make the launch method. This is where I would listen for connections, incoming connections. So I create a server socket. Yeah. I call it welcome socket, and this is equal to a new server socket, and we want to listen on 2910. This is the port number. Again, just habit. You can probably use just about anything. I'm going to add throws here, and then I will surround with a try and catch. All right. Then we have the while true. So in here we just want to listen for or accept client connections. We say welcome socket.accept. So I accept a client connection here. We get a socket out of that, and that socket, again, it represents the connection. It holds the connection to the client. And now is the, so let's just print out here, waiting for client, server started, and client accepted. And then the next thing would be to take this socket and give it over to the server socket handler. So let's look at this class now. This one is my runnable class, so it implements runnable, so I can run it in a separate thread. We implement the method run, and I need a private object output stream out to client, so that I can send objects to the client, and I also need to read objects from the client in from client. I need a constructor, public server socket handler, and it takes a socket, like this, and I want to import the socket. I create my out to client equals new blah, socket get output stream, in from client equals new. There we go. And then I want to surround this with a try catch, so I selected everything I want to surround. Control Alt T gives me this surround with. You see I have both if and do and for, and I can synchronize it, and I'm going to use this one, and I think that's good. Then in the run method here, we want a while true, and we first so do I send strings, or do I just send a message, or what do I send here? Do I send a message? I'll just send a string. String is fine. So we are going to read a string in from client, read object, and that will give me a string. Let's call it this. And I want to surround everything with a try catch. There we go. Yeah, that seems to work okay. So I sort of skipped ahead here, so let's just take it from the beginning. All right, the first thing is that we connect to the server. That's okay. The server will create a socket handler, and we'll take the client socket handler later, but we must send an ID here. So I need the ID. So this one should get an ID. Okay, with int ID, and let's go private int ID, and I'll just underscore this, and we say ID is equal to ID. So I have that ID stored here for future use. I need that ID from somewhere, so I get that from my hello server. So we go back here, I say int ID equals null. Down here I say ID plus 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 plus. Okay, and while we're here, I might as well just say I need a new thread, because I want to hand this socket over to my server socket handler and then run that in a separate thread. So we go new server socket handler, and it takes the socket and it takes the ID, and then I call start here. So now my thread is started and it's running my server socket handler, and I've given the socket and the ID. So my server is actually finished here, I think. So let's go back to the server socket handler and continue here. So the first thing, according to my diagram here, we send the ID. All right, so let's do that. I must initially say out to client, and we do that inside the try, write object, and I will just write the string value of ID. There we go. So I convert my ID to a string. So that's the first thing that happens. The client will receive the ID. Then this client will send a hello string. I read that here, and let's just print it out. So read object. So I am sending hello from client plus an ID, and I must send an hello to you client number, whatever. So we print this out, and then I must write something back. I create a string response, and I say, and hello to you client number plus my ID. And we write that out to client, write object, response. There we go. So that should be set up. Again, it's suggesting that I collapse these. I might as well. Right, so now we catch either this or that. And this one, I'm not really going to do anything about that. That's fine. All right, so I think I have my server and my server socket handler in place. Let's create the client, hello client. I must have a public static void. Here we go, and I create a new hello client. And we say hello client, launch. There we go. So let me just create this one. So this is where everything happens in. Okay, so first I create a socket connection to the server. I create a new socket. I must import it. Alt enter to quick fix that. So I import it up here so I have access to it. I give it a local host. I give it a port number 2910. I create my new socket, and I just do the quick add to exceptions, and then I catch it up here. I could have, you know, surrounded this with a try catch, but I'm going to have multiple lines inside here, and I just a habit that I don't like too many indentations. If it's just one line I indent, then okay, but here I'm going to have a bunch more code, so this is just my habit of doing things. You could surround everything down here with a try catch. Maybe that's nicer. Then your launch method can actually do something about the errors instead of mine just failing. But we will do this for now. I must create a new client socket handler, so and run that in a separate thread. So we say new thread with a new client socket handler, and I misspelled that, client socket handler, and I give it my socket, and we call start. Okay, so I need a constructor, right? It's complaining that I don't have a constructor which matches the arguments that I'm trying to give, so I can just select and click Alt Enter, and I create a constructor. It takes a socket. That's good. Then over here it's complaining that this is not runnable. I need a runnable class to put into my thread, so let's do that. I implement runnable. There we go. I must create the run method like that. Okay, so my client here is ready. It doesn't really do much in this exercise. It just maybe we'll change it to do something, so it looks like more what you will do in your semester project. So I will have a private object output stream out to server, private object input stream in from server. I will create them down here. So let me just check in the socket handler. I created the out to client first, my object output stream. So I must create my input stream first here. They are created in pairs, remember this. sometimes it messes up if you don't do it. And like that, socket get blah blah blah. Okay. And then we create the out to server, new object output stream, socket get output stream, and I must surround it with a try catch because this could go wrong. So we surround it with a try catch. There we go. So I guess actually it would be nicer to do it down here. I'm just going to do that. So we try something different. Then I need a private socket, and we go this socket. So I'm just using this time around. We see different ways of doing things. So the reason I'm doing it down here is because in general, the rule of thumb is that your constructor should basically do as little as possible. So this should be a quick instantiation. You just create the object, and then afterwards you can do with it what you need to do. I read this guideline somewhere, and it sounded reasonable. So my constructor just said something. Then in the run method where I actually need these, then I can create them. So I just need to define them here and here. No, this is an object output stream. Okay, so I have these. Then I can do my while true. No, I am going to need this one here as a field variable. We will see why in a little bit. There we go. The in from server, I just need that here. This is the only place I should read something, but I might write something somewhere else, which I'm going to. So the method here is only supposed to just listen for input. So I say in from server. Well, the first thing that we're doing actually is receiving the ID. So I know that is also always the first thing. So we say in from server, and we say read object, and I know this is a string, and so we read a ID, and I need to add a catch clause. There we go, and we might as well collapse them. There we go, and I will just put the ID up here, private string ID. Okay, so I've read my ID, and then the rest is just reading input here. So we basically do the same thing. We call this read from server. There we go. And in your semester project, your client is then supposed to figure out what to do with this. So similar to the previous exercise in the previous video, where the server socket handler would receive a request from the client and then figure out what do I actually do with that request, and then call the appropriate method on the server. Then in this case, we should do something similar on the client. I don't really have that many methods, but I just need to call a method on the client here so that the client can figure out what to do with this one. So that means I need a client instance here. I need a private hello client. I need to get that with my constructor. Hello client. And now I'm messing up everything because it's using different styles. Obviously I shouldn't do that, so maybe I'll just do this here instead. Right. Can't jumble around too many conventions at the same time. That will just be unreadable code. So I have my client available now, and I just say client some method name handle object string from server. So I just give the, as I said, I should check what is it that I get from the server, but in my case I just get one thing, so I handle the string from the server here, and I create a method in the client, and the thing it needs to do is just print it out, read from server. Okay, so let's go back to my client socket handler. So we just have this one. This is listening for whatever from the server, and whenever we read something, then we hand it over to the client in the appropriate way by calling a method or another method, and then we just wait for another thing to come from the server. So my threading part here, the run method is just reading input from the server. Now sometimes I want to send something to the server as well, so I say public void send to server, and in my case I just take a string, message, whatever. In the semester project you will probably send some kind of request object. So we say out to server, and I go write objects, and we say message, and then I must surround this with a try catch. There we go. So if I was unable to send this, I would then either try again, or maybe a couple of times, or I would show a message to the client, to the user, saying that whatever you're trying to do failed for some reason. I can get a sort of decent reason. Yeah, that sounded right. With a get message that just gives me the name of the exception and sort of what went wrong. So my client socket handler is responsible for listening for input. This part happens in the separate thread, and this part happens in my main thread basically, and that is responsible for sending. So now it gets really confusing, I guess. So in my hello client I must modify this one. I give it this, a reference to my instance of the hello client here, and then in a while true I send to the server I say client socket handler, I need that one. I need an instance of this one. I call it client socket handler, and I say send to server hello from client, and here I need an ID. All right. So how do I get the ID? I could obviously just say that the ID is appended in my client socket handler. Whenever I write an object, I just say plus ID. That could be okay. Or I could up here, once I read the ID, I could set that on the client, and then I could have a method called set ID, takes the ID and so on. In my case, my client doesn't really need to know about its ID. It's enough that the client socket handler does. So I have created my client. We're launching it, so that is actually running. We create the connection and hand that connection over to the thread. Then I start the thread, and then I start writing to the client. Now there is a chance that I will reach this point here and trying to send something before the thread has actually started, and this one might fail. Let's see how that goes. So I think I have everything in place in my server socket handler. I read something. I write something first, the ID, then I read from the client. I print that out. I create a new, and then send it back to the client. So I should probably have done something similar by, say, in my case here. So whatever I read from the client, I figure out what to actually do with the client. I give it over to my hello server, and the server will then do something and then create a response, and I send that back, just like we saw in the previous exercise with the server socket handler here. I read something with, well, that's the same name, so that didn't really clarify anything that I specified the name, but I'm reading a request from the client. I figure out what to do with the request, uppercase, lowercase, whatever. I create a result, and then I write the result back to the client. Right, and the result here is created on the server in my server class. So I should probably have done something similar. And but if you were to combine the knowledge from both of these exercises, I'm sure you can figure it out. So let's give it a go. Let's run everything. If I can find a play arrow, here we go, and I want to run it. All right, it started. I just paused the video again, but now we are resuming and we are waiting for a client. So let us find a client that we can start. I have a client here. How lucky for me. And up, lower, away with you. Start this one, and let's see if it spits out a bunch of errors. Null pointer. Well, that's unexpected. What do I get here? Null pointer, client socket handler. I get a null pointer here. Okay, yeah, that was sort of expected. Yeah. So I'm trying to send some. I'm calling this method here before the stuff here has been initialized. So, and in this case, it sort of makes sense. We're starting right after, but if you do a real program in your semester project, then obviously you will not have a while true that spams the server. You will only send something to the server based on the user input most often. So maybe I will just wait here for some user input. So I create a scanner, yes, keyboard new, I misspelled that. Doesn't matter. I create a new scanner and I take system in, and then I just say keyboard, next line. Okay, so this here will wait until I write something and press enter. I don't really care what I write. I just want to pause my program until I'm ready. So let us try that out. And I'm going to need multiple clients to run, so I also need to go up here and click edit configurations, and I want to configure them for the hello client, and I say allow parallel run, so I can run multiple instances of the same class or run my program here multiple times. Let's try again. Maybe I should have paused the video here. Now it's too late. We are almost there. And here we go. Come on. Saving caches. Sounds wonderful. Waiting for a client. Fantastic. Okay. So let's go here. Did I press? I pressed. Something has happened. Come on. So close now. So very close. Okay, I think we're waiting here. Hello, whatever. Okay, and hello to you, client number 0. So this one just spits out a bunch of cool stuff here. So let's try another one, because it is a multi-client server system we are creating in our semester project. So I run again. Just needs to compile. What? I didn't change anything. Why do you need to compile? Maybe there's a check somewhere to say that only upon changes do I need to recompile everything. Maybe I'll find that someday. Okay, I have my other client. Whatever. It doesn't matter what I write. I just want my client to pause here, and okay, there we go. Hello to you, client number 1. Okay, and the server is printing out 0 and 1s and 0 and 1s, and isn't it wonderful? I can handle multiple clients. They are both working at the same time. Let's start another one. Or maybe I am completely murdering my laptop with all this. It is a slow and old laptop. So. Come on. All my 2 cores are fully working. Here we go. Okay. Here we go again. Here go again. Whatever. Null pointer. Oh, it was too slow. Or I was too fast. Let's try again. Alright, this is starting to get annoying. There must be a setting somewhere. And for every thread and program that I start running, this one gets even slower. I should have put in a small sleep here, 200 milliseconds or something like that. So let's just see, it's still printing out. And I have a hello client, this client 1, client 2, and here, let's see if I'm lucky this time around. Hello. Yeah, here we go. I have 3 clients working now. I dare not start another 4th client, then I'm sure the universe will implode upon itself. Okay, so I get client 0 and client 1, and I have client 3 because my client 2 crashed. So I think this is enough for now. At least I should stop all these. So we have the basic setup, and the idea is that I have a socket handler on both sides, because the only task they're doing is performing the listening for inputs from the other side. So this one is just listening for input from the server in a thread, and this one is listening for input from the client in a thread. And because we're doing it in threads, then my client and my server programs themselves can do other stuff while we're listening. So we have a sort of, shall we call it an event system set up here. My hello client socket handler here. When something comes from the server, we will react at this point here and then tell the client about it. So this is, we can say that an event happens here. And then I have a method down here. So I know this might be a bit confusing, because I have my client socket handler. I create a new thread and call a start. So whatever is going on in my run method here, that's the part of the code that happens in a different thread, right? So I have my main thread, and in my main thread I create the client and I launch this one, and this also happens in the main thread and down to here, and then the start method spawns this part in a separate thread, right? Then my main thread continues here and here and here, and so this part, right, I call my method here, which is the method here. So this part is called from the main thread. So I actually have the class here. This part is running in a subthread, running in main thread, right? I have 2 parts of my class that's running in separate threads. And maybe this is obvious to you, but I could imagine that some of you might be a bit confused about that part. But it's all about where the method is called from. So, for example, this part is executed in the main thread, and so this part is executed on the main thread. This part is executed in a separate thread, and we're calling handle string from server. So that means this part is also handled in the subthread, right? Crisscrossing here. The confusion is total. So I think this is a good place to stop the video. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. I think I have covered it all, and I didn't really stick that much to the exercise. Sort of went through the same idea, but we took some detours here and there. Yep. thank you for watching, and see you next time.